Yeah, hello, good morning. Welcome to the first thing in the conference, yay! It's the 10 a.m. PowerPoint, so I feel like Also, it's ironic that this is a presentation by a company with physical in its name, so I feel like I owe you this. This is due. So hello and welcome to Ensemble and Collaboration in Arts Administration, which I realize almost rhymes. I wasn't thinking of that when I typed it, but whenever I say it, I should have tried harder to make it like a rhyme. My name is Jacob Timmons, my pronouns are he, him, and I am a part of Cahoot Physical Theater Company. So today we're going to be talking about the part of theater making that maybe doesn't get talked about as much with artists, which is equally as important to making theater as being on the stage or in the studio, which is the administrative side. Sort of the business side, sort of the operational side, whatever you want to call it. But it is a part of making theater. And it's something that we want to be intentional about, it's something that we want to be purposeful about, so that it doesn't end up just kind of happening. And particularly when we are working in ensemble and working really closely with each other, we want to make sure that we're taking care of each other as we do that. And we're not throwing people under the bus unintentionally, or we're not setting people up for failure with the way that our systems are built in. So really keeping the sense of ensemble in all aspects of theater. So I'm a little curious about who's in the room and why you decided I want to see a presentation on arts administration. So I will ask a few people if you would be so kind as to say, this is why, this is like who I'm with, maybe I'm an independent artist who works on lots of projects, maybe I'm with a formal like business entity, maybe it's a casual kind of company that works together. Who's in the room and why are you interested in learning more and deepening your skills and philosophies in arts administration? Mm-hmm.
Sure. Hi, I'm Holly. She just moved to the Twin Cities like 2 weeks ago.
Woo! Welcome!
Thank you. I'm a recent graduate from university. I worked in like arts administration, specifically in the dance world. Mm-hmm. So I was curious in seeing some perspective from theater, even though I know that they all mesh and collab together. But
yeah, great. Welcome to the Twin Cities. Oh, wonderful. Who else?
Hi, I'm Maddie. My pronouns are she, her. I recently moved out of arts administration, but it is my passion. It was very sad. I'm grieving, leaving it. And I think a big reason I left that particular job was the sense of dysfunction and just kind of negative vibes, both from, within our staff at points, but really because of the dynamics between the board of directors and the staff. And just, I think that's maybe something a lot of people have had some experience with. And so just really looking to, in thinking about potentially starting my own company projects in the future, how I can not make those same mistakes in the future.
Yes. Maddie, you're in the right room. This is the place to be for arts administration that is functional and takes care of the people involved. That's a big topic for today. Yes.
My name is Kat. I'm from Bruce and thinking about starting another collective.
Another collective? Are you making a collective of collectives?
So the biggest place where arts administration is a struggle for me is the place where all of our artistic and cultural and spiritual and filial practices want to be one formation, a particular kind of formation that works and makes sense. And then it butts into like, should you have an LLC? Should you and like how is the relationships and like the agreements that you make with each other butt into signing papers that say this is your relationship?
Yes.
Which is administered by a bank and like the Minnesota Secretary of State, and so that those sorts of intersections is where I find I'm still very curious and trying to figure out like what is the move for this next one, which I hope will have rotating hierarchies
love that. Love everything you're saying. Yeah, and we're going to be talking today about like systems and building systems. And we should also remember that our systems that we build as our ensemble are not in a void. There are bigger systems around it, such as the bank and the government and the IRS, right? And we do not have control over that. But what do we have control of as it interacts with these larger systems that we don't have control over? Yes, yes, yes. Anyone else? Yes.
My name is Rachel. I use she, her pronouns. I am with the theater company Melancholics Anonymous, and we just moved forward with getting facilities sponsored by Springboard. Like that's so exciting, but kind of daunting. Of like, how do you take like a company of 10 people who are used to kind of being really scrappy and collaborating, and starting to make more formalized structures while still like having equity and integrity, and keeping it still like fun for some folks who are full-time artists. We have some people in our company where it is like a passion project. So kind of finding that balance is a big key.
That's fantastic. Also, and it seems like everyone's in the right room. I will say Cahoot Physical Theater is currently a 501c3 nonprofit company, but we started in an incubator program physically sponsored by Springboard for the Arts. That's why we're like, hey, let's move on. Because they really do like spring you forward. But one more. How about one more person? This is fun. This is fun. That's you. Sorry, I'm like,
Is there somebody back there?
way in the back, hiding in the corner.
Brenda Marta, I had one in LA. I had a small one called Workspace that worked with writers and also with composers and doing different new projects in development. But the thing I'm starting here is called Sci Arts, SCI-Arts. And no, it's not for kids. It's for developing projects with other theater companies and with composers and with writers that have to do with science-themed material. And so I'm working with some people at the university, and we're trying to put it together. I've done the high school sponsorship before, so it's always interesting when you do that. And I know Springboard for the Arts, I've done it through Fractured Atlas before. But so I'm kind of looking at a weird sort of structure, because it's not about just the people doing stuff in their bubble. It's about bringing stuff to other companies and finding ways that different types of ideas are presented on stage.
Yes, yes, also very important. This sort of, there's the collaboration of the ensemble, there's the collaboration of like these two come together. It's like, we have our systems that we made, and like we have our systems that we made, and they're not always the same systems.
Yep.
Absolutely. So it sounds like everyone's in the right space. It sounds like we're on the same wavelength, and we're maybe asking similar questions, which is what I love about this conference, because when this is over, you can be like, remember at the beginning when you said you were doing, like, can we talk about that? Share emails or phone numbers, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to give a brief presentation on a big topic. However, I will say that one of the things that we do through Cahoot Physical Theater is we do like little arts nonprofit consulting, which are super chill, cost you $0. It's basically like, let's go to a coffee shop and hang out and like talk about whatever you want to talk about. So if I don't answer your questions and you're like, I want to know more about that, feel free to talk to me after this or grab, we have a little card on the shelf in the lobby. And then if it is not helpful, it costs you $0. So that takes me off the hook, low pressure for me. All right. So before we get started further, I do want to have a couple of like agreements in the room, right? So one of them is these three are also in Cahoot. So I should point out these three people here. We have one more. She has work today, so she can't be here. Boo work, boo. So, yay, Catherine, boo work. I just want to clarify. So there's one more. We have a show tomorrow night. We were like tagging and running through it yesterday. I am running on a little sleep, and I am very tired. So we're talking about big things today, and I might go blah, 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 blah. If at any point you're like, what the hell did that man just say? I did not understand. Please feel free to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Can you take another shot at that last part? And I will go back and I will do a second attempt for clarity. So I will not take it personally. Feel free to be like, stop, stop, stop. I didn't get that. Are we good on that agreement? Is that one? Okay, cool, cool, cool. The second one is, I would like for today to not live in a space of thinking of things as good or bad, or right or wrong, right? These kinds of like judgments that we will place on things. I really want it to be framed through the lens of productive or not productive. And what I mean by that is you or your collection, or collective, your collective of collectives sometimes, have goals that you're working towards. And things that are productive move you towards your goals, and things that are not productive do not move you towards your goals. So we're going to be talking about, like, you could do it this way, you could do it that way. And I'll have my opinions about it, you'll have your opinions about it. But things that work for Cahoot might not work for you. Things that work for you might not work for us or someone else in the room. So we don't want to frame it in like, that's a bad way of doing it. That's the wrong system. We just want to say, is it productive or is it not productive? Is it working for us or is it not working for us? And if it's not, don't do it. And if it is, lean into it. How's that agreement?
Yeah.
Cool. And catch me on that, because I might be like, that's the wrong way. Like, hey, you said not to do that. So the last one, which I'm already kind of talking about a little bit, is I'm going to be using Cahoot Physical Theater Company as sort of like an example or case study, because we're going to talk about like big ideas and philosophical things. It's going to be really conceptual, which is ironic for the Physical Theater Company, I know. But I'm going to use Cahoot as an example to sort of like ground it in something like more real and tangible, so it's not all way up here. And so what I will ask for that from you all is to constantly be contextualizing what I'm saying into your setting, into your company, into your ideas and dreams of the future, so that it's not like, I want you to know about Cahoot, and you go, they seem cool, and then you leave and that's it. This is not like, learn about us. This is us as an example for you to take and always be thinking about, like, what am I gonna do with this? And things that I say that you're like, that sounds cool, but it's not gonna work for me, leave that on the shelf. That sounds cool, but I'll need to kind of mess with it a little bit in my context, do that, right? Can we have that agreement? Yes, we have all of our agreements, and I love that. All right, so since I said it, we're going to be using Cahoot Physical Theater as an example, so I will briefly talk about what this is so that you know when I use as an example in the future. So the first one is Cahoot Physical Theater is about 7 years old. We started formally in December, Amelia with the mustache, in December 18th, 2018, which I say is our formal date because that's when we started in the incubator project, and Cahoot Physical Theater was on paper with the name for the first time. Our first project was summer of 2019, and then we had big plans for spring of 2020. But didn't we all have big plans for spring of 2020? So those stopped abruptly, and we went on a several-year hiatus as a theater company. I know, as a theater company, we're physical in it, being like, let's stay away from each other for 6 feet in a couple years, like that also makes it harder. So we took a couple years of hiatus, and Cahoot as it is now, Cahoot in its sort of most recognizable form today, really began in 2022. So it's about 3 years in our current structure as we continue to learn and grow. So we're 7 years old, and we're kind of 3 years old at the same time. We have an ensemble-based structure. This is the big one that we're talking about today. We have the artistic side, the creative side of Cahoot, and then we have this administrative side that we're really focusing on today. There are 5 people in the ensemble, and they take care of both sides, right? It's not 2 different groups of people. I kind of say, it's not quite right, but we sometimes say that the 5 of us are like 5 co-artistic directors, which is maybe kind of a good way of saying it, maybe it's not quite right. But the 5 of us are also the administrators and organizers of this theater company, so it's the same for both. And so that's why we're kind of like, how do we maintain, like we're saying, this sense of like ensemble, and when we get into the paperwork side, when we get into the contract side, how do we keep the play of ensemble in the rehearsal room into like the office? It's currently just like each of our living rooms on rotation. This one I've spent on, this is like what this conference is about. We do devise new work, we get together, we build things. It is physical theater, which I will not explain what that is today, but if you are like, man, I would love a long, meandering, vague answer to my question of what is physical theater, I got you. I got you, so you're gonna find me later, and I will spend a long time saying a lot of words that will leave you with nothing, and then we can be confused together. The last thing I'll say is that everything that Cahoot Physical Theater does is free all the time, every single thing. Our shows have no ticket price, there's no suggested donation, there's no pay what you can, the workshops are all free, events are free, everything's literally free. terrible business idea. We're passionate about it. I do like to say that this is not our belief that like, if it's not free, it's bad. Don't think that. I think that people who charge admission to workshops or theaters, that makes a lot of sense and it's a very important part of a business thing. Again, this is just the way we do it. It's not necessarily good or bad or right or wrong. All right, so that's that. What I'd like to do now, even though everyone's just kind of like popcorn, I want to talk a little bit about what do you think of the word ensemble, right? 'Cause it's the word I'm talking about, it's the word we're saying lots of things about. What comes to mind when we think about ensemble?
Building a shared vocabulary.
Shared vocabulary, I love that. What else?
Playing people's strengths as well as acknowledging weaknesses and covering each other.
Oh, God, you're on it. You're on it here. You did. What else? Yes?
Collective decision making.
Collective decision making, yes. It's not like, well, I'll decide and the 4 other people in Cahoot are like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, too bad. I decided that we will. That's not very ensemble. What else? One more. Someone's thinking about it, but they're being self-conscious about what they're going to say.
Maintain community.
Maintaining community. Yes, we're an ensemble. We're working together. We're getting things done. We're a community as well. Let's not forget that. So, when Cahoot Physical Theater started, we were an ensemble. When we first got started, we said, great, we're really stubborn about the idea of ensemble. We want this ensemble on the artistic side, and then we said, oh, now we run a business. I guess we'll be ensemble in business too. And so we had this great idea where everyone would do everything together all of the time. It did not work particularly well. And there were a couple of reasons that it didn't work particularly well, right? Like, and hindsight's 20/20. I can look back and be like, oh, 20/20.
No, that's it.
Hindsight's 20/20. We look back and we go, oh, of course it didn't work. But in the moment, we're like, yes, ensemble, right? So we want to maintain that energy at least. But we look back and we realized very little work got done when we were not all together. We would get together in our little meetings and we would get some work done and then we would split ways. And then I would be over here like, oh, I think we should do this and we really need to get that done, but said we do everything together all of the time. So I guess I can't do anything until we get back together again. And it's hard to get 5 people together frequently. So not a whole lot of work got done because we didn't want to step on toes. We didn't want to like overstep our bounds. We didn't want to feel like we were breaking the rules. And so we just didn't do a whole lot. The other thing is that we were not leaning into our strengths. Right? Because when we have this sense of ensemble, of like everyone is together all of the time, doing everything, ensemble sort of becomes like assimilation. Everyone just kind of like merges together and no one really stands out, no one's strengths are popping out, no one's skill sets are really being utilized, right? Like if we're collectively trying to figure out some graphic design stuff, and Graham is a graphic designer, and I certainly am not, we're both equals on the graphic design thing. Why would we do, like, you have the strengths, I do not, right? But we were in this place of like, we'll all do everything together. And so people couldn't really like step out and shine with their strengths. But it also meant that we didn't really have the opportunity for people to become experts in a certain thing by being the one who can do that over and over again. To understand, this is how this works. If I'm going to set up a collaboration with St. Paul Public Libraries, and I do that every year, I know how that works. And we can skip a bunch of the nonsense and just get right to it rather than we all have to start from the beginning and relearn this contracting process, right? You become an expert as time goes on. So we decided, okay, what we need to do is delegate. We need to be like, okay, you take this, and you take that, and you take that. Then people can use their strengths. Then work can get done when we're not all together because you can say, well, I'm the one who does this, so even though I'm by myself, I can get that done. But then, are we not just sort of like recreating a typical modality of organized work, of silos, right? And I'm not even talking theaters, I'm talking work in general, where we have our, siloed place over there and siloed place over there, and someone becomes the boss, and we're like, the collective decision-making is gone because someone used to just tell everyone what to do. And we've now just recreated what literally every other business kind of does. And have we lost that sense of, no, ensemble, ensemble, ensemble? So what do we do? How do we do these two things? Where we really, really want this sense of ensemble, but we can't just do everything together all of the time. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to do a little bit of activity. If I can have 4 volunteers to come up here. Surprise. I gotcha. You're like, I'm going to sit down. Yes. One more. Do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, here's the task. I'm going to ask the 4 of you form some kind of cluster, and you can be on different levels if you want to have someone kind of like in front, kind of like a cluster together. Yeah, get real in there. Yeah. Facing up this way, right? So I'm stealing this from the world of clowns, so it's very like, haha. Ooh, we all hate that, especially you. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you the ball, and I would just like the 4 of you to sort of like pass the ball amongst yourselves in a way that doesn't look like, here you take it, here you take it. It should look to the audience like the ball's just kind of like moving on its own. Pass that, just kind of pass it amongst the group, yes. Yes, and then it just kind of keeps going. Yeah, everyone's focus is on the ball. Whoa! Yes. Yeah, whoa. Amazing. Whoa. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh. Whoa. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate something here. I want you to imagine, because this is very good. Yay. So I'm going to recreate what I would like to happen, which is a mistake. You all are so great at this that it's really hard to get a mistake out of you. So imagine that it's passing through, and then there's my ball. Okay. Now what?
Somebody has to go get the ball. Or we pretend that we still have the ball.
You said?
I could go get the ball.
You could go get it.
And then
What if you did? Yeah.
And then they can give you the ball.
And you have to fight for it. And you've got it.
Thank you.
Bring it back. Whoa. And then it continues. Hey, yes. Great. There was a problem. Something happened over here, and you said, I'll go take care of that, right? Did we all say that Matt should be taking care of that? No. So Matt, why'd you take care of it?
Because someone needed to go take care of it.
It was a thing that had to be done, right? And that's
bad than calling a committee meeting.
yes. We all need to get together and be like, okay, we need to say who's going to go with that. All right. So I'll say this, Matt. I want to say that you are the person that when the ball goes away, you are the one who needs to make sure the ball comes back, right? Okay, that's your responsibility. Continue. Whoa, cool news. Okay. You still have that role, fantastic. You still have that role, and you cannot move.
I feel like we have to invite somebody new to the collective here.
Now, you can't move. I can't. They can move.
But Rich, would you mind going and asking Brenda to get back the ball?
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to call it there. Thank you. No. Thank you. Yay! Delegation, yes. Yes, this idea of like, that should get done. So I'll go do it, right? I'll go take care of it. That's a great initiative, right? It could have been, if we have this idea of ensemble, that's like, hey, how come you're going to go? Shouldn't we all go together and pick up the ball all together? Should we all be holding onto the ball at the same time? Right, but it's being moved around, hopefully seamlessly, and then when something goes wrong, someone goes and gets it. What about when Matt could not move? What happened?
It became a joint responsibility situation.
Yes. Yes, because Matt was told, hey, it's your responsibility to make sure the ball comes back. But Matt doesn't necessarily have to go get it to make that happen. Yes.
The ensemble brought in a consultant to give him permission to ask.
Yes, we can talk about where we're communicating, right? You're having this thing of like, hey, Matt needs to make sure that the ball comes back. So when the ball is lost, everyone else goes, Matt. And Matt goes, why don't you go get the ball? It's like, okay. And then it continues. And that's the main thing, is that the ball comes back and the work continues. When the ball is dropped, it comes back and it continues, right? And so this idea that Cahoot found that was this like combination of ensemble, and delegated specialized work came from the idea of stewardship. That's the big word that we use. And I will fully say that this came about when they really wanted to build that big pipeline, and there were a lot of protests to like protect the water, do not build pipeline. And a lot of the indigenous community were saying like we were stewarding the water, right? And what they were saying is the water, I don't own the water. It's not my water. But we all have a responsibility to steward it, to take care of this together, even though it's not my private property. And so we pulled that into Cahoot, and we started to have this caretaker mindset, this stewardship mindset that I've often said in my metaphor of the garden metaphor, which these three have heard so many freaking times me talk about the goddamn garden. We love the garden. So the garden metaphor is imagine that there is a garden. And imagine that there is, garden. What's in the garden? There's tulips in the garden, there's radishes in the garden. What else is in the garden? Peonies, carrots.
Bunnies.
Bunnies? Yes. Yes, the bunnies. We're growing the bunny. No, we're eating the carrots. What else is in the garden?
Squash.
Squash. Fantastic. We have this beautiful garden full of all of these wonderful things. I have a background in theater education, by the way, so every now and then I slip between what grade I'm in, so I'm like, what's in the garden? We have flowers. So, we have this garden with all these beautiful things in it, and let's say we have one gardener, right? Okay, my job is to take care of this garden. And then the carrots aren't doing so well. So they're like, carrots. And while they're so focused on the carrots, suddenly the peonies start. Oh, the peonies. And then the radishes aren't looking so great. And then the tulips are starting. And it's one person can't do all of this. So now we have 5 gardeners. And we're like, fantastic, 5 people, more work done. And then the radishes aren't looking so great. So all 5 gardeners are like, what do we do about the radishes? We need to get the radishes. And then the peonies started to fade. So all 5 gardeners go over the peonies. And we're doing the same thing, but just with 5 times the people. So now we have our garden. We have 5 gardeners. And we section the garden off into 5 distinct sections. And we say, if you could be the caretaker of this, your responsibility is that. Your role is that, right? So now we have one gardener, and in their section, the tulips aren't looking so great. And they're like, and then in another section that's still within their part, the peonies are looking so great. And they're like, and they're running around, and the other 4 gardeners are like, well, my section's looking pretty good. Good luck. Then we just have 5 gardens with 1 gardener each. And so we take this idea of stewardship. All of us are ultimately responsible for the garden. It is our garden. No one owns it. It's not my personal private garden. It's our garden. But these 5 gardeners will have their areas that they specialize in, that their strengths really shine in. However, ultimately the entire garden is all of our responsibility. So one gardener is like, oh, the tulips aren't doing so great. And then in another part of their own section, the carrots aren't doing so well. And they say, hey, gardener number 2, can you take a look at these carrots? Because I really have to focus on this. Gardener number 2 is like, yeah, I don't know anything else going on. I'll go look at the carrots. So now they've crossed into another section. but it's not like it's my section, it's your section. It's still ours, and so we can move into this other section. Maybe when gardener's like, this tree branch is about to die and crush the bunny nest. No, but I'm not any good at chopping down tree branch. I'm afraid of heights, but it's a tree in my section. But that person's really great with a ladder and a saw, so I'm gonna ask you if you could use your strengths to cut this tree branch down. Now it's still my area to steward the tree, but I just might not necessarily be doing every single thing in my area. I might be calling in help from my ensemble where their strengths are to say, can you take care of this? And then the tree branch is cut down, the bunnies are saved, and the thing got done. Just like the ball came back, even though Matt didn't personally go get it. Matt stewarded the ball coming back, and so the ball did come back. And there was a sense of ensemble of like, yes, I will go do that because you asked me to. Maybe I'll have a feeling about it, but I'll still go do it. So that's where Cahoot sort of has its like caretaker stewardship aspect of the garden. We will all take care of the garden. It is our garden together. But there are certain parts of this garden that I will pay special attention to. In theater, this might look like we've got a show tomorrow night. And so if everyone responsible for everything, all 5 of us would be so laser focused on tomorrow's show that we might forget about the contracts and QuickBooks and paying people afterwards. We might forget about marketing the next thing we're doing in the winter. The website will become old. Social media stops working, right? We stop doing everything else because we're all like, the thing is tomorrow. But when we say, Amelia, if you could steward the Kaboom Cabaret, right, which is a big thing that will require everyone, like, Graham, can you help me with the program? And Chase, can you run tech? We'll all work together. But I'm still thinking, okay, the contract said that we would pay people by September 2nd, this much. These people need a check, these people need an electronic payment, so we're working ahead. Meanwhile, Graham is stewarding the show in the winter. So Graham's like, okay, we still need to talk about this thing. Don't forget about this thing, right? And so we've broken up the work in a way that allows for delegation, specialization, right? This is the second time we've done the Kaboom Cabaret, so it's Amelia's second time, and already it's like, this is so much easier than last year, right? Because I learned last year. But if we said, you know, let's shuffle it around. Chase, you're doing the Kaboom Cabaret. Graham, you're doing the Kaboom Cabaret. It'd be like, well, I guess I'll start over because I wasn't doing this last time. So now I need to learn from scratch again, rather than one person being like, all right, now I get it, now I get it. It's a little bit easier. Yes?
So when you're talking about somebody stewarding the cabaret, for example, and within that you mentioned there were like sub-jobs, like somebody's got to run the sound, somebody's got to run programs or whatever. That steward is not, you know, is in charge, but also asking of the other 4 people who are stewards of other things to come in at that garden, work on these things as well. So everybody is still working on the cabaret in some capacity where they can help, but one person is like, I'm the steward of the cabaret.
Yes, so that if it's like, Graham, can you work on the program? And Graham's like, yes, but also Graham has a million other things. Amelia can be like, Graham, did you do the program? Remember how we talked about that? And Graham go, oh my God, yes, thank you. Yeah. And so there's still this person who can sort of help you, like, oh, let's still bring it in, like, hey team, like, let's get to click. Remember how you said you were gonna get that ball? Did you remember? Yes, here's the ball. So it's that idea. Great. And everyone's kind of shuffling the who's the steward depending on the context. Good question. Any other questions? I just love talking about this so much. Where am I? I've left my notes, I just start talking at some point. Oh, yes, okay. That's when the garden comes in. Whenever the garden comes in, look, we can talk about it all the time. Okay, so what this then requires is a great degree of role clarity. So that we talk about these stewards, we know what that means. If we just say, you're stewarding the cabaret, I mean, it'll be like, and what about it? What does that mean? Where does that start and stop, you know? If we say, oh, you're stewarding, you know, Chase the technical director, it's like, what is that? Where does that begin and end? You know, do we all agree on what technical director is? Probably a lot in some cases, but then there's going to be these parts on the edge where you go, is that not? We just had a conversation where we were sort of getting like a sublease to use a consistent space, and there's this like, so I'm responsible for the facilities now? It's like, I think you are, right? Like, but we have to define that. We have to say, this is what the role is. so that there is not this immense confusion of, well, isn't that your job? Shouldn't you be still? Why are you asking me to do that? And there are a couple of ways that we can communicate that. There are a couple different ways that we can sort of show that to ourselves and others. And a big one is an org chart. Who knows what I mean with org chart? Who's seen an org chart? Yes, lots of people. It essentially, well, here's a very commonly shaped one. Does this look familiar? It's an org chart where these are people and these are people. If you're looking, this is just the shape of an org chart, which is short for organizational chart. Oh, I thought you meant organic. The garden, it's organic! So, if you're looking at just the shape of this org chart, there's no information. What is being communicated? Hierarchy, how so?
One person at the top.
One person here?
Flowing, and everyone flows up.
And everyone flows up. Yeah, who, by show of hands, who feels confident that they could identify the boss of this organization? Yeah, which one's the boss? Green, yes, because of the shape of it, it says this person's in charge. This person's running the operation. What else might you glean from this?
There's departments.
Departments, yeah, these kind of columns here. And what about the orange to the purple? Yeah, it's like this person's kind of being managed by this, and they're managing the teams. This department has like, I'm the boss of the department, but not the boss of the whole thing. That's the green person.
Silo. I mean, like you're talking about, it's very siloed into we're working in these
Yeah,
things, and we
like
don't really cross
this person
over.
to this person, how much are they, right? And it's possible, right? But it might take a little bit of work, right? And now an org chart isn't changing the structure. Like it's not like you build this, which I call the bracket org chart, and suddenly your organization is like this, right? This is communicating the structure that already exists, right? So you might find places in which this is important. This is good to have, good. This is productive for your ensemble to have something like this because you do have some kind of people management structure, right? It might be that way. But just know that when this is built, it is communicating an idea, and that idea is who is in charge of who. That is what the bracket org chart says. Who is in charge of who? No. Sorry, I know at least one person here is getting itchy by that. So it's communicating who is in charge of whom, right? So we have this people management. That's the main idea, right? This is what this is showcasing, which maybe is helpful for you. And if so, I encourage you to have it, because what you don't want is like a new hire to come in and go, so what's the management structure? And you're like, we don't like to talk about it. It exists, but it's a secret. It's like, that's not fun. So communicate it if it is true for you. Communicate it. But just know that that's what this is communicating. Now I want to show you another kind of an org chart, which is called a matrix org chart. If it wasn't 10 a.m., I'd try. Also, I'm still hurting from last night with this rehearsal. So that's the fun of being the artistic ensemble and the administrative ensemble. Is you do a gigantic fight and then do a presentation at 10 a.m. And then the next day you go back to cabaret. So this is the matrix org chart. And it's a little bit weirder. It's definitely less common. So go with me as I show this shape. Okay, matrix org chart. It's communicating three, I got words in here, so I'm gonna like read them out because it can be all tiny. So there's three sort of main areas of the matrix org chart. There's at the top, these are departments. Imagine that this line is sort of connecting to these, kind of like these are, but it's cut off. Departments, which just is like kinds of work, similar kinds of work. We might say that they are parts of the garden that are really similar to each other, that might require the same watering cycle, that might require the same amount of shade, right? So things we learn and do with one part of the department will probably connect to other parts. It's similar kinds of work. Over here, in the blue, we have the person. These are just individual names of people, right? It's Graham, it's Jacob, it's Catherine, who wants to be here but couldn't because she had work. These are people who are like off to the side here. And then when the department meets the person at that intersection, that is their specific role that they steward. That is the caretaker part. So if this is like communications, right? Let's say, for example, that this is this is literally the Cahoot org chart I just took. So when I'm like, oh, communication, this is communication. That's this is the shape of Cahoot Physical Theater's org chart. I just took this up because I didn't want it to be like, oh, they have that person, they have this, but like I don't want to get into the distracting by that. So let's say that this department's communication. Let's say that this person is Amelia. Hypothetically. So when we get Amelia and communications, you get social media, because Amelia stewards the social media, right? But if this is me and this is the website, then we've got the website, we've got social media, and those are not too far away from each other. Things we want posting out to the world, we probably want to be similar in both places. So that's the helpful part of saying, okay, these things are going to be a little similar. These things are going to be a little similar. But we can also communicate that people are doing different things, which is very common in our ensemble type of work. Like, you take that, you take that, you take that, you take that. But a lot of it is playing into our strengths, right? The things that we have in our roles are things that we are strong at, or things that we have been doing enough to learn about it, right? Yes, feel free to take pictures. So, what was I going to say about this? Check the notes. I just became aware of how warm I am. So I was like, I wore a sweater because it's fall outside, and now I'm in the lights going during presentation and having coffee instead of water. So let me pause here. What else are you seeing before I get into my next thing? What are you gleaning from this? Which might be a thing that maybe you've seen this. Who has seen sort of a matrix org chart before like this? Yes, we have familiarity with the matrix org. They're often a lot in projects, right? So if you're like, oh, we have our company, but we're doing this project, like let's pull that together. We use it organizationally. What else are you gleaning as information just from the shape? Yes.
Question.
Thanks.
How communication operates? Because clearly in the bracket, it's line communication has to filter through a manager to get ahead. But I'm curious about how that operates in the structure.
Good question. Right, there is no flowing through the manager, right? We focus on essentially what part of the garden are we talking about? Is this social media? Is this the website? Sometimes we have places like perhaps a marketing manager, for example, and they might be the one to say, okay, I'm going to build this marketing strategy, so I want to bring in the website person, I want to bring in the social media person, I want to get the newsletter in here, right? And we're going to build this, we want community engagement in here, and they might be the person to say, here's a team that I need, but that person as the steward is responsible for bringing those people together. Say, I really could use your help, I could really use your help. And then when that work is done, the marketing manager who's doing the strategy building would be the one where, like a manager, information would be going, but really it's just their responsibility to make sure that this is a working, functional group, that everyone has what they need. Yes?
Are roles assigned based on people's individual capacity, or based on here is one quarter of the roles, here is another quarter of the roles? How do you choose how many roles somebody gets?
Fantastic question. And I have the very disappointing answer, which is you just kind of get together and talk about it. All right. But really, it's this is version 3 of our org chart. It has changed over time. People have changed, the roles have changed. We built a new one. I was talking about Chase, the technical director, that's recent, right? This thing about okay, you're the whole thing, that was new. This used to be different, right? But as we have people come in, as we sort of say, what are our needs now? Do we have need for this role anymore? Do we have need for a new role? What are people's strengths? What are people, as you edit, you can sort of be well, what are you doing that's similar? That's where this kind of happened, that this is development. So we have sort of fundraising and grant writing. And those were separate, but then someone was I love asking for money. And we're do you like fundraising and grant writing? And she was yes, give it to me. And we were okay, well, I was the grant writer and I did not like that. So if you want to take that, I would be very happy to give it to you. So things move around, right? But originally we had someone else who was I love the fundraising, I don't like the application proposal part. I'm great, I can do paperwork, so I'll do that. So it just shifts as time goes on, but you just continuously be checking in with each other to be do we have what we need? Is everything cared for? And oftentimes I'll ask, not oftentimes, every now and then, be fair. Is it working, basically? And there might be there's this one part that's really hard for me. We can shift it around a little bit. By show of hands, who can confidently point at the boss in this organization? No. There is no boss. That's kind of, there is no boss here, right? There might be, right? If you do have an organization with this sort of, the structure that gets you the bracket org chart that we just looked at, you can also have this. It just won't be communicating people management. It's communicating task management. It's communicating who is in charge of what, rather than who is in charge of whom. Or I would even say who stewards what here. So that's what this is. This is communicating workflow, types of work, the parts of the garden that are being stewarded. And if you do have a structure where there's maybe an artistic director or a managing director, this might be kind of the flow of information a little bit like we're talking about, where this is, vision casting, and it's setting, this person sets the season, this person sets the annual budget, and it can kind of move along until you get to production. But maybe your managing director is also your stage manager, so they're in two parts. You can shape it however you want. This is for you. For you. Why am I jumping this up? All right. So, I love it so much. I could talk about it for hours. So essentially, when we get together and we have these roles, we want to follow a little bit of a process that actually some people talked about agreements earlier, which is this idea of making an agreement, trusting that people do that agreement, and then holding people accountable to the agreement. But the big part here is the agreement. Sometimes this gets skipped in ensemble. Sometimes we get to a place of like, of course we all agree on this. Of course we all know what this is. And sometimes it can feel like making the agreement or saying we need to make an explicit agreement about something feels like you don't trust each other. It doesn't have to be that way. We can pull that out of it, right? I write the contracts for Cahoot Physical Theater, and there is like a part that I call the no assholes clause, which is basically in the contract. It's like, if you are racist or you sexually harass someone, like your contract's cut and you're out and we're not paying you, like get out. That does not mean that I believe that every person who I'm sending a contract to is probably gonna be an asshole and I have to like cut this out. I realize this is streaming for maybe YouTube, so maybe I should not be saying things like asshole over and over again. It doesn't mean that. It just means let's make an agreement. And in the contract also says we will not be jerks to you. Like we will maintain that for everyone. This is the agreement that we're walking into. It's not about mistrust, right? But starting with an explicit agreement from the beginning makes things easier as you go, because you can say, all right, I trust you to do that. You're the marketing person. The agreement is that you will build the marketing strategy. I trust that you'll do that. And then if it doesn't happen, there's this sense of accountability that we can go back to the agreement and say, remember how we said this? But this is the part where it can get really tricky. This is the part where we find a lot of assumptions come to the surface. So let's say the agreement is you will build a marketing strategy by the end of the month. And we get halfway through the month, and I'm getting antsy because I haven't seen half of the marketing strategy yet. Like, shouldn't it be halfway done? Shouldn't we get together and have like a check-in about it? And I want to hold you accountable to the agreement of the marketing strategy. And I say, Rachel, we're halfway through the month. Where's the work in progress? And you can be like, I didn't know I needed to give you a work in progress. Like, what are you talking about? We can go back to the agreement and say, well, that was never said. We never said we would do that. And I'm bringing my assumption about what I would like to be done. I have a solution to this problem we never discussed. And I'm putting it on you. And I need you to do it. So we can go back to the agreement to take the personal aspect out of it. We can stop this idea of like, well, you're procrastinating, or you're lazy, or we could just say like, what is the agreement? What did we say that we were gonna do? And if the agreement said halfway through there will be a check-in, then now we have something that's not about Rachel as a person. It's about the agreement we had, and we can say, let's get back on track. How can we have this ready for next week? And it's just about getting the work done rather than shaming or blaming or finding fault in someone. Yes.
So then who approves the marketing plan?
In our case, we all kind of look at it.
Okay.
So if the marketing plan is for the ensemble to do something, the ensemble will be like, is this the marketing plan that we would like to have?
And does it then become a majority majority approves?
We do have a little bit of a fail-safe that I don't think we've ever actually had to use that says if we are butting heads, we are not able to agree on something, majority, we take a vote. And there's 5 of us, which is really convenient because it won't be a tie, right? But we've never actually had to use that, but it is there, which is an agreement. So if it does come up, we say, let's take a vote. And now we don't have to argue about if we should take a vote or not. We say, well, we did agree that we would take a vote, let's just do it, right? So it is this sort of committee structure, as much as I hate to say talk about committees, but there is this sort of like, okay, let's get together and make sure that this is functioning well for everyone. Yes, and then yes.
Have you run into just like failures in the agreement? Like a person, say the person was like, yes, I'll do the marketing thing by the end of the month, and then it just isn't done.
Yes, we have. We absolutely have that. And that's where we go back to the agreement, right? Because that tells us exactly when we can step in, right? So if we're saying you're going to do something and then it's not getting done, I might get really antsy to interject and be like, do it. But if the agreement is it's going to be done by the end of the month, there might be some check. We do have regular check-ins. We say, how's it going? I'm like, oh, I haven't started it yet. Well, is it going to be done? If it doesn't get done, right, there is, am I jumping ahead? I'd say one thing that we do, let me say this for now and then I'll get into it later. One thing that we do is soft and hard deadlines. A soft deadline is an internal deadline we can adjust as much as we want. A hard deadline is if we miss it, that's bad. So like a grant, we're submitting a grant. The hard deadline is the minute they say the grant closes, right? The State Arts Board or MRAC, they're like, nothing after this, that's the hard deadline. So we'll say a week before that is our soft deadline. We want to submit it here, so we have a week of adjustment. And that is something we build into our system to account for failure, which is human nature, and people will fail. You're gonna fail, you're gonna fail, you're gonna fail, you're gonna fail, which sounds bad. But that means we're free, because we're gonna do it, so we don't have to worry about it. And so we can build in these fail-safes. But if we don't build that into our system and we say, all right, well the grant has to be due Tuesday at noon, and then we just leave it at that, and then Tuesday at 11:45, someone's like, my attachment won't load, and it goes by 20 minutes and we miss the grant. And that's no good. So we build a system that says, what if we gave ourselves some time to fail, to be sick, to have too much on our plate? You have
Just kind of synthesizing, so you all meet together, you say, okay, Graham, you're in charge of the social media marketing overall strategy. You have, a month to give us something to talk about as a group. A month goes by, you all look at the plan, and then you're able to give your input and say, here's what I like about it, here's what I think could be different, or, not using good or bad. And then that's the collective decision making. You're like, okay, we all were able to give our input, we all feel like we said what we needed to say, and now the decision's made. Like, we will talk about it again if we need to talk about it again, but like now it's done, we've had this agreement, and now we're moving on.
Well, would you say that's about right?
Yeah, or it could be an opportunity for whoever who was working on the plan to maybe like, oh, I'm gonna take this feedback, I'm gonna go do some more work on it, and I'll bring it back. If more work is needed, maybe you could figure it out in a meeting, and then it's like overall agreement. This little thing needs adjustment. It's done. Or it might be like, oh, we need to take some more time and rework this, and then come back. You know, but it's a time for like feedback and for the person to keep working on it too.
And hopefully that's like built into the plan. This thing with the agreement, we're going to get into it just a little bit. Having the time. We're going to get into it just a bit. We're going to talk about setting things up from the beginning, and a big part of that is the plan. So if you set up this plan really nicely from the beginning, you run into less of like, and then what do we do, and what if we're late, and what if we're, there's the time to check in, there's the time to give feedback, there's time to incorporate the feedback and come back, it's all built in. And then the plan never goes the right plan.
And then also there's a bit of that kind of going, like, so with the org chart and how there's like so much crossover, there's already a lot of that kind of like communicating with the areas that overlap even before you present to the whole group. So there's like, I'm like the finance manager, and Jacob and I do a lot of like communication about the budget and the finance planning, and so we're already giving feedback back and forth. So you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, and like somebody to kind of bring up possible like roadblocks and things before it even gets presented to the whole group. And so most times, like Jacob said, we often don't even end up having to do the vote. There's already been that communication across the group a few times before it's presented to the group. So a lot of times, at least for us, it's just like minor tweaks and adjustments during that, like giving it to the whole group.
Yeah. And that's what works for us. It might not work for other groups. You might say, oh, that's an interesting idea. We're going to have to do that a little bit differently for us. That's cool. Mm-hmm.
A quick question, maybe you want to address this later, and there's some other things you want to get to. I didn't see that. The word or the phrase roadblocks is an interesting one, and I just wondered what is for you, the adult of this company, and for other people that are here, what are the symbols? The ones that, I always think about, for me personally, it's like all of a sudden marketing nowadays becomes an interesting symbol because there's just so many dynamics. It's not like putting out 1 or 2 or 3 things, it's often putting about 20 things out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering what is it that seems to, in a collaborative effort, and a good financial person, they're usually the person that's focused on the financial side of it, but marketing can be sort of a different one. And I just wondered what other types of things are the ones that suck up the most time?
Suck up the most time.
Or roadblocks, or
Yeah.
things run into difficulties. You can address that at the end of this too.
Maybe. Let me come back to that, because I'm going to talk about that super vaguely, really conceptually, and then maybe we get into specifics of like, doesn't marketing suck? What I will say is like, we give everything away for free, and sometimes we still have a hard time getting people to show up. And it's like, how do we do that? That's a big question that we have, because free is not enough. It's maybe relationships. I'm getting into it now. I'm going to go into it's such a good question. It's really, I want to talk about that now. But we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk. Okay. So what this is taking us into, which we've already started with, is systems design. Systems design. Now, systems is a really weird thing because we probably are already thinking, maybe we're thinking computer systems, maybe we're thinking like, what, but my definition of systems is really plain, and it is just the way things go around here. That's what I mean by systems. We talk about systems design and building systems. I mean building the way things go around here. It's really that simple. And then when you acknowledge that, you acknowledge, oh my God, everything is a system. Everything is a system. Registering for this conference, the way we filed into the room, the chairs facing here, the TV facing here, it's all a system. The name tags are a system. It's all a system. And your brain goes, when it comes out your ears. But then you go, oh, I get it. I understand. And what that does is it gives you a bit of agency to say, if that's all it is, I can do something about that, right? I can have some design in it. Because a system will be built whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of if you craft it with intention. So as an example, I'm going to keep this vague. There's maybe a moment in Cahoot when like a check got lost, right? A check got lost. And there's this sense of like, how could you lose a check? How could you lose a check? But it's not the check. It's that the system was that checks just go at someone. And they're like, and of course someone's getting it. Of course one's going to get lost, right? If you look at this, it's not just like checks. I'm just like throwing checks at you. And you're trying to live your life. That's hard, right? And so it's difficult to then figure out what we do about that. Because it might be too easy to say, Matt, why are you not doing it good? Right? But instead, we need to back up and we need to say, what is the context that this person is working in? And is it functioning in a way that's going to make sense for them? Right? And so then we can redesign the system to say, let's do a lot of stuff in QuickBooks, so it's electronic. Let's build something that tracks the checks. Let's have another person involved, right? Because in this scenario, it was a check that I should have been tracking, and I didn't. And then it was misplaced, and I was like, I didn't even know it was misplaced, right? It's like, it was an educational programming. We got paid by the library, and then I'm the education manager. I didn't even know that we got that payment. So that's not great for me, but it's really easy to be like, Jacob, you should have known. You're the education manager. Shouldn't you know when an education check is coming in? How was I supposed to know? So we look at the system and we say, how are we working here? This is super vague, I know. And so I want to talk a little bit about a tool to help build a system, right? This is one of many tools, and it's the last thing I'm going to share before we do something else. We'll figure that out in a moment. So this is one tool for systems design, which is called the Noster model, K-N-O-S-T-E-R, the Noster model for managing complex change. And by complex, it just means many moving parts. That's all. It doesn't mean complicated, it doesn't mean difficult, it just means like lots of things happening. And change could mean anything. Change could be deep organizational change. Or it could mean, we're gonna do a show, right now we're not doing a show, in a couple months we will do a show. So the change is there will be a show. So it could be pretty concrete too. But either way, when we're building systems, right, and we're gonna get into this in a bit, there's one philosophy that I want to share as we sort of take this tool and build the systems. If you take nothing else from this presentation, nothing else at all, I want you to take this. That your working philosophy and administrative side and the business side and the ensemble work side is to support your people and interrogate your systems, not the other way around. If you're interrogating people to keep your systems the way they are, you're just maintaining status quo for no reason. So when something goes wrong, right, the check is misplaced, the marketing strategy is late, things didn't get done on time, deadlines are missed, something wasn't the quality that you wanted it to be, it's really tempting for your first thought to be, someone did this. Someone's at fault. Someone messed up and I'm mad at them. That's the knee-jerk reaction, and I am asking you. And that doesn't come from nowhere, right? We've lived in a place where that's the sort of blame and shame mentality, right? But it pulls into your organizational culture, right? Anytime two people get together to do work, you're building an organizational culture. So, take a breath, set that aside and say, if I am with my ensemble that I love working with, because I don't have to, because we don't make enough money for this to be something that I need to do, so I'm choosing to do it. If I'm working with them, and I assume that everyone's doing their best, right? Which I do, that's my operating model for Cahoot, everyone's doing their best. And someone still messes up. If I'm thinking of someone who's doing their best failing, I have to ask myself how that happened. And making it a personal failure on the individual doesn't make sense in that way. They're doing their best and yet they still fail. But if we take a step back and we look at the system they're working in, right, the processes that came before them, we will often find it's a problem in the system. It's a problem in the working model that threw them under the bus, right? And we've all been in that place. We've been in a place where it's like, you know, you're hosting a fundraising, and people show up and they go, this is it? Just a couple of carrot sticks and some chairs? You're like, my budget was $50. What do you want from me, right? But it's like, you didn't do a very good job. It's like, I was not given what I needed to do a good job. Or I was confused, or I need a little bit more help on the deadline aspect, right? Whatever it is, really, really, I beg you, try to pull the personal aspect out of it and maintain a systems lens of things that are objective and measurable. To say, this is how it happened, this is where the hole was, right? We had a little bit of this recently when it's like, we're doing this cabaret. How much do I pay people? And I was like, oh, we get to the contract part where we say what we're doing, and then that stops. And then Graham, the finance manager, is supposed to magically know exactly how much everyone's supposed to get paid and when. What about all of this, right? And so if people didn't get paid, which they will, we patch that. If people didn't get paid, it might be really easy to be like, Graham, you didn't pay people. But Graham would be like, how was I supposed to know how much to pay people and by when? I wasn't a part of all of that stuff over here. So we have to patch the system. It's not enough to point to someone and say, it's all your fault. Sometimes, and I would say even often, it's no one's fault. It's very difficult because you can't point to a system. You can't point to the face of a system and say, it's your fault. So it's difficult. So this is my big thing. If nothing else, this is the thing. This is the takeaway. Support your people, interrogate your systems. And if you are feeling like, it's this person, think about what they're working in and how everyone's different, right? Maybe I don't need as many reminders. Maybe someone else does need reminders. And if we need reminders, we can download an app like Asana, where you put in your task and it sends you reminders every day. System, right? Not sponsored, because we have the free version. If we had the paid version, then I'd be like, brought to you by Sun. But that's an example. You know, it could really easily be like, why can't you remember? Why can't you just remember? Well, it's hard to remember sometimes. I have a million things going. Do you see our org chart? There are like 15 things going on there. There were exactly 15 things going on. And so, then we can say, let's build a system that helps with reminders, right? That helps with this sort of like, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Because it's not that you don't care. You're not forgetting because you don't care. It's just people forget. So we build a system that supports that.
I'm not sure if you're already going to go into this, and I know you're pressed for time, but something that I was just thinking of when you talk about this was like, you and I recently had a conversation about systems and the, like, oh, shouldn't be getting into like the blame game situation. And then me as somebody in our system, in this world that gets really into self-blame shaming, I was like, okay, well, since there's a flaw in this system and I am the company graphic designer, did I do a bad because I didn't create a system better for this? I set myself up and the rest of the group up for failure. And I don't remember exactly what you said to me in that. It was like something about like an opportunity or like.
Doesn't that suck?
Yeah.
Let's think of it as an opportunity, right?
Yeah. But like I guess like speaking on that of like, okay, running into that like, oh, we realized that there wasn't an actual like system set in place. Like, was it my responsibility as the graphic designer to create that system and tell everyone to follow it, or us as a collective or a group to,
So my response to that, just to remind you, as we ate our pad thai. I remember it so clearly. It is an opportunity because when your organization or project or team or whatever begins, every system now exists. It just is. It's just happening, right? And it's a matter of going in and intentionally building the thing you want it to be, right? And so wouldn't it be great if in a snap of a finger we've now redesigned every system that our company works in to be absolutely perfect? That would be great, but it's not possible, right? So what I like to think of is once is a mistake, twice is a choice, 3 times is the system. So when we say this thing went wrong, it was the first time it went wrong, we go, oh, mistake, whoops, now we fix it. Now we know, now we have our eye on it. This system was already sort of happening, and now we go, oh, I see you, I see this system, let's do something about it. That's the opportunity, which again sucks to hear. I don't know. So yes, great example. But yeah, if we didn't do anything about that, and then we did it exactly the same mistakes again the second time, now we've chosen to do that because we saw it and we decided not to do anything about it. If it happens a third time, it's a pattern, and this is now the way Cahoot Physical Theater does this. So that's where we say once it's a mistake, it happens. Now let's do something about it. Isn't that fun? All right, my final thing is to go over the Nostr model, which I introduced and then looked at my computer and said, I have one more slide. So now I'm going over the Nostr model. This is it. There you go. I don't have to say anything about it. Yes, okay. So the Nostr model says there are 5 things that you need, right? I'm going to do this actually. Benjamin, this might be familiar to you, or anyone who was here last year. Yay. Circus, circus. All right, let me do this. Okay, so I'm going to try to balance it. Let's see if I remember. Okay. So, first I'm trying to get it just right, and then I let go, and then what is my hand doing under the feather?
Adjustment.
It's adjusting, it's doing these little tiny adjustments, right? Now you might be thinking, okay, well if I'm gonna have to adjust it, if I have to do this, why am I bothering to get it just right? Why am I bothering to get it just right? If I'm gonna have to fix it anyway. I'm having so much fun, right? What if I just set it like that?
You're setting yourself up for success.
I have to go, right? Yes. Oh, say it again louder.
You're setting yourself up for success.
Oh! Oh, yes! Yes! Set ourselves up for success. Yes, that's it exactly. We want to set ourselves up for success, knowing we will have to keep working on it even after the setup is done. Because we can just be like, and then we're like, and maybe we do get it, right? And that's like, hey, great. You didn't have to work so hard. If we had just put a little bit more time in the beginning, you wouldn't have to be running around. So even though there are these little adjustments, it's still helpful to set ourselves up for success, even though we will inevitably have to make adjustments. So this is the Nostr model. There are 5 things, and I say these are 5 things to have in the beginning. Proactive, set yourself up for success. It's a vision. It's the shared understanding. This is a thing we're doing. We all agree. This is the agreement part. We get it. We're on the same page. We know where we're going. Motivation is the why. I know why it's worth it. It's gonna cost me time and energy. It might cost me money and resources, and I know it's important, and it's gonna get me where I need to be. Skills. We are born with, I would say, almost 0 skills to start out with. And then we learn skills along the way. And how are you supposed to know every skill that exists in the world by the time you have to do something? So some people have strengths, some people have other strengths. And skills is saying, let's put the right people in the right place, so that if we're doing a big graphic redesign, and I'm not a graphic designer, I should not be doing it. I'm gonna be really upset because I don't know what I'm doing, right? And that's not a failure on my part because I'm not well versed in graphic design at this point in my life. It's just that I would be put in the wrong place. An action plan, which we talked about, is timelines, benchmarks, check-ins, right? Whatever the plan is, you make it whatever, but have a plan. And then resources, right? This would be my example of, we're doing a fundraiser and there's just carrot sticks and some chairs. It's like, I like $50, right? Have the resources you need, time, money, people, stuff, have it. So if you are proactive before you begin, setting up the feather, before you begin, you're getting these things in place. It's all perfect. And then you start, and you immediately have to start adjusting because no plan ever goes according to plan, right? And we don't need to get frustrated by that. We don't need to be like, the plan isn't working. It's not going to work. It won't. And we can accept that and then be free of it and be prepared for things to go differently. So then the Nostr model becomes a diagnostic tool when things go wrong to help you figure out maybe what part of the system could use your attention. So after things get started, you might see that some people are confused. Some people, it's not necessarily someone being like, I'm confused about this. It might be someone going, I'm going to start doing other work, right? I'm doing the marketing strategy, and now I'm also doing all of the graphic design, and I'm sort of getting into our finances a little bit. It's like, hey, we're on the same page. So if people are confused, take time to bring people back in. If you're finding some resistance, some people are like, I don't get it, I don't want to do it. People aren't doing the thing you asked them to do. You might find that there's a lack of motivation, right? In which you can say, maybe I did not clearly articulate the why aspect here. And so I should go back and take the time to do that, right? All of these little issues are not like everything's falling apart and you can't work together. It's just a little sign to say, and now I need to move my hand under the feather this way, time to move it that way. I've definitely been in a place where I've been told to just do some work. And then I'm like, this is stupid, it's wasting my time, this meeting is dumb, and I shouldn't be doing this, I got other things to do. And then my manager, I'm not talking about Cahoot, I'm talking about like other work. Then when my manager is in the middle of punishing me for being a bad worker, then they say why it was important. I go, oh, if you had only just mentioned, they're like, it shouldn't matter, you should just do the things you're told. It's not helpful for our system. We should be saying that from the beginning so that everyone is understanding. And if there is resistance and you cannot answer why it's important, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. Maybe you should do something else if you don't have a good answer for it. If people are really anxious, or really afraid, it might be that they are put in a place where they don't have the skills to do the thing they're supposed to do. I'm being asked to do a visual brand redesign. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm looking at it, it's like a MS Paint scribble. I'm like, I don't know what to do, right? And it's not that I'm a very bad person. It means I don't have the skills for this. So it might mean that someone else should be doing it. Wrong people. Not productive choice of people in certain places. Or it might mean that the timeline should have had time for me to develop those skills before I was asked to do the thing that I'm being expected to do. Should have had time to figure out how does a marketing strategy work before I'm supposed to make a marketing strategy, right? It's not a personal failure. I ran into this one recently, which is false starts might mean you don't have an action plan. There's a thing that I've been talking about where I'm like, next meeting we'll do it. Next meeting, we should really do this. And someone's in our group chat like, okay, when are we gonna do that? I'm like, I've been trying to do it for 2 months. That's false starts. Now we're gonna do it. No, now we're gonna do it. It's because there's not an action plan in place to say, okay, this is when we start, this is when we check in, this is when it's done. You can adjust the plan. There might not be a plan if you're going this time. And lastly, if you're facing a lot of frustration, it might be the resources component is missing, right? If I'm keeping with this graphic design thing, it's like, great, I can do it. Don't have Photoshop, don't have a computer. Okay, well, then what do we do? So you might need that, right? And so you might have everything in place, but you don't have the time, you don't have the people, you don't have the money, you don't have the stuff, right? I'm doing a big fundraiser for 500 people, and I don't have tables and chairs, so everyone has to sit on the floor. That wouldn't be great. And then everyone would be mad at me because everyone's sitting on the floor. No, it's the system, right? So this is sort of a way to be proactive by saying, before we get started, let's take the time. Sometimes we skip ahead. Let's take the time to make sure we have everything. Knowing full well that as soon as you get started, you're going to have to make adjustments. That doesn't mean you didn't do a good job being proactive, right? It just means things happen. External circumstances take place. Someone got sick, the timeline is off. Can someone else take this workload, right? Things have to be moved around. But that's why we build a plan and a system that buffers, that takes care of people, says it's okay, we have time, we can make it work, we can move things around, because we were proactive. Yes?
Who's stewards making these plans?
This one's me! In general, so one of my areas of the garden, which I realized never said, is the executive director, which sounds like the boss, but it's not. That's just a name I say, so when I sign things for the IRS, they go, oh yes, that's the executive director, he's supposed to be signing this, right? But really part of my job is the thing I'm talking about now, sort of this like, ways that we work together. You know, we're in this big group chat, that's not working, let's move to a different way of doing a group chat, sort of the ensemble's workings, and then things like taxes and contracts.
So there is one person every time, whether it's the cabaret or upcoming fundraiser or season planning, there is one person who's in charge of let's figure out what these things are for.
I see. That is not always me, right? That is the person who's sort of like stewarding that to do this. Whether they map this out and they go, first we do this, first we do this, first we do this. We've had a bit of a check-in, like, because I, as the person who kind of has the strength in this, can go up to someone and be like, seems like we're not on the same page. Should we have a meeting where we come together? Yes, okay, yes, let's call a meeting. And it's not my thing to do that, but I can kind of say, it seems like there's some confusion. Should we maybe, so there's some assistance, right? We're not siloed.
We need these 5 things for every single part, like
anything.
These 5 things for social media. We need these 5 things for Kaboom. We need these 5 things for the winter show.
Yeah, these are the things to have, right?
And so the steward of each of those individual areas is making sure that these things are happening.
They're saying, do we have that budget in place, right? Do we have the plan? Do we have this? We have it. All right, y'all, look. We've had some fun together today. We've had some laughs. We've shed some tears. We got in that giant fist fight when Evie was out of the room. Don't tell. But here's the thing that I want to leave with, right? Ensemble is a choice. Ensemble is a choice that you make. You don't have to make that choice, and you're not bad or wrong if you don't make that choice. Some people don't, that's fine. You don't have to do that. But we do, right? That's why we're here. We make that choice, even though it can be really hard because it is complex, because now there's many moving things. But we do it because we love it. But love is an action. You have to do that. You have to enact that. So if we're making the choice to be an ensemble, and we are loving that thing, it is important that we take the time to carefully build intentional ways in which we handle that ensemble in all aspects. We are really good at doing it in the rehearsal studio, and then we have to like send money to the state government or whatever, and now it's like, and we're just like upset with each other or frustrated, right? It doesn't have to be that way. All the great things we're doing in the rehearsal room, we can pull that sense of ensemble and togetherness and systems and agreements and accountability into every aspect. It just might look a little bit different because the work is a little bit different. But it is worth it to do that so that we can take care of each other. Because first and foremost, an ensemble is a group of people, and that should always be at the top. We are a group of people. Then, there's shit to get done. There's stuff to do. Final thoughts from you?
A bit of a question, really. So I'm an actor, but I'm also a facilitator, and I work through like models of power sharing and collaboration. So what's really fun is a lot of what I've heard. And I think the reason I asked about accountability earlier is because I think in having like worked with and facilitated for many collectives, there is also a truth that like sometimes there's like a deliberate breaking of agreements. Sometimes like money is invested. Sometimes lies are told. Like there is this other side of human nature. Like humans are collaborative. They deserve grace and support, and systems need to be interrogated. And also sometimes people are starting to on some fuck shit. And so like I'm curious about whether Cahoot has had to deal with like active modes of conflict resolution, conflict mediation. Like what do you do when you run into the things that are sometimes difficult to avoid in human nature?
I'd say direct harm is incredibly rare. I'd say oftentimes there's other things going on that are leading to a sense of harm. What I would say is ultimately is if harm is done and it is deliberate and purposeful, systems can only do so much. The system is, they gotta go. They're out. We can't be on ensemble with you anymore. And that I would say is the final resort, right? That is like the in. So if you're in a conflict with someone and you're like, should we kick them out? Should they go? And you're like, whoa, maybe there's something else that can be done first, right? But I would say, for the example of embezzlement, which is a thing, my personal thought with that is like, the system should not allow for it. Of course people are gonna it should be very difficult to embezzle, right? That's something we're doing with QuickBooks is like, okay, no one can do every process by themselves, right? It's not because I think Graham's gonna embezzle or Graham thinks I'm gonna embezzle, but we're setting these systems up where it is not possible for one person to move money all by themselves, right? So then if someone's trying to, you can say, hey, what are you doing? But ultimately the resources are stewarded. But it is possible that harm is done. I would say if people are deliberately harming other people and you cannot think of a systems way to bring that together, part ways, right? And maybe it's not good, bad. Maybe it's just like, you gotta go. Can't be here with us anymore. That's the thing that happens. Yeah. Final thoughts. Where this is it. Last word. Who wants the last word? Pressure. It's not good to me. Could be heavy. Yes, Kate.
How do you take your admin hat off and get your creative hat on when you're the saver doing
how do we do that? That's a big. We might have to keep this one short because we need to go.
Well,
go.
Just Kaboom is happening tomorrow. Last year, I was extremely stressed out at this time of like the process of it. This year we were like, oh, what can we do about that? And we brought in a stage manager.
No way!
Yeah. So we were like, we need more money so we can bring in an outside person who is not performing to help round the day off and also been helping me the week leading up to it. So, and I probably won't be able to completely take off the production hat because it's hard. I'm trying to let it go, but it's like that is very helpful to bring in to say what do we need, because I was like, I can't do this another year like this, and I was like, I need this, and I just said that, and we were like, okay, we need to make sure that the money is there for that next year, and we did. So yeah, yay.
The answer is, if you figure it out, let us know. So, with that, like, this is it, this is the end. Again, I'm happy to have conversations about this, and again, you might have heard, and probably did hear things today where you're like, that sounds nice, I don't know about that. Or that's not gonna work for us, that's not the productive thing. I'm not saying this is the correct and good way to do it, and you should all be doing it this way. I'm saying here are some thoughts, contextualized, morph it into what is productive for you and your team, and leave behind what is not. And thank you all for being here.
Yay, thank you.